Let's look at the second of the spreadsheet tasks. Now I've opened up the trophies spreadsheet and the question is asking for information about the trophies that have been purchased for the awards ceremony. I've started to input this information into the spreadsheet. Can you please complete it for me? So the first part, task A, is worth 5 marks, and we're being told the company we purchased from has offered us discounts depending on the number of each item purchased. Please apply these appropriately. So looking at the spreadsheet we have open, wondering what we need to do. Is it a lookup or is it a nested if? Well, we've done a lookup already, so this is going to be, well, it's either a nested if, or I actually use the ifs function for this because I find it actually slightly easier to manage. But we'll do it both ways, and then you can decide which way works for you. So looking at the spreadsheet there, we can see that depending on the number of trophies will give us a discount of 5% more than 10, 3% if the purchase between 5 and 10 of a particular trophy, and less than 5, they're going to get 1% discount. Looking at the spreadsheet there, and I can see we've got column B, number purchased, column C, price per item, and the first thing we need to do before we even bother about the discount is do a very simple arithmetical calculation starting in D4. The subtotal is going to be equals number purchased in B4 multiplied by price per item in C4. So just a very straightforward formula that we can copy down. Now, to pull across the discount amount, we're having to pull it from the table down there in the blue. The way I think is an easier function to use is the IFS function. So if I do equals IFS and open the bracket and use my fx to bring up the function argument box. Now, I always think it's better, especially if you're doing a nested if you need to, is to start with the highest value. All right, so logical test 1, I'm first of all looking at the number purchased. So we're sort of saying if, that number purchased, and I'm going to start with a higher value, the more than 10, if that is greater than 10, if that is true, so if I jump down to my next box, if that is true, what discount are they going to get? And I'm going to click in cell B17. That's where the percent is sitting. I have to lock that into place with my F4 and I can move on to the next one. Logical test 2. This time, if the number purchased, again, we're back into B4. This time, well, if it's between 5 and 10, it's going to have to be greater than or equal to 5. That's the test. If that is true, I'll just drop down to the next box. I'm going to click in the cell B16 and lock that in with the dollar signs. The third one, as I jump down, we again are going to B4. And the last one there, if it's less than 5, so if B4 is less than 5, notice there's not another box to jump down to. We just have to click on the tab key actually to bring that one up. So the third one then is the 1%. Now I don't know why I've got plus B15. I'll just take that out and do it again, and that's better. And then I'm going to lock that in with the dollar sign. Okay. So that's using the IFS, the ifs function, and I'm going to click on OK. Now you'll notice it's not quite right because it's returned me a discount amount of 1 pence. What it's actually done is returned 1%, so I can go back up into my formula bar, and I want to actually take the 1% or 3% or 5% and multiply it by the subtotal. So we just have to do the wee asterisk there and click on the subtotal like that, and then click on enter, and that pulls it down. And then we can just click and drag or double click and do it that way. The total cost at the end is again a simple arithmetical calculation, equals the subtotal that we calculated earlier minus the discount amount we've just worked out. Click on enter, and then we can copy that down. So that's how I would tackle the task 3a using the ifs function, and we'll just quickly now look at using the nested if, because that's perhaps been the way that you've been taught. Okay, if you're using the nested if, almost the same. Start with equals if, all right, open the bracket. Logical test, well again what we're saying is if the number purchased in B4, and remember I'm going to start with the highest value, so if that is greater than 10, if that is true, we're applying a 5% discount, which needs to be locked in. We'll do our comma. We've got to start again. This is where the nested part of the if comes in. If, open bracket, this time, if the number purchased in B4, if it is greater than or equal to 5, if that is true, and with my comma, I will jump across. If that is true, then they're going to be getting the 3% discount in B16 locked in. If it's not 5% or it's not 3%, then by default with the nested if, as I do my comma, otherwise the third option is going to be the less than 5. Click in the cell B15 and lock that in. And of course, with the nested if, we have to close off the second of the two if statements, and then we do a second closing bracket to finish the thing off. Click on enter, and it's done the same thing again actually to go back up before we copy down up to the formula bar and multiply by the subtotal to get the result we're looking for. Copy that down, and that will return the same total cost, £176.65, but this time using the nested if. So that's us done 3a. And of course, just before we do finish, actually, just remember it's asking to print a copy in value view. Oh, in fact, that's interesting there. Print a copy of this worksheet in value view and formula view, but without the discount table. So that's just really making sure that when we are doing a, print selection, we're going to, highlight just this only, and then file, and then print, and just make sure it's not just the active sheet, but print selection will allow you to do that. So that's the end of task 3a. Let's now look at task 3b. Task 3b talks about concern about spiraling costs, and it's looking to compare this year compared to last year. Could you please calculate the difference in costs? In fact, I'm just going to switch to the comparison sheet there. Can you please calculate the difference in costs between last year and this year? Print this worksheet again in value view and formula view. So the first thing we need to do, of course, is bring across the 2024 values. We could do a lookup, or we could just do a dynamic link between the two sheets. So the easiest way, click in cell C4, equals is sort of the dynamic linkage part of it, switch back to the awards, and it's the total cost, and click on total cost there, click enter, and then we can copy that down like that. So to work out the difference between 2023 and 2024, in column D, we have to think about, first of all, working out the difference and then dividing by the original cost. So it's going to be equals C4, that's the 2024 cost, minus the 2023 cost. Pop that in a wee bracket so it can do the calculation to get the actual difference in value. And we're dividing that by the 2023 cost. So it's C4 minus B4 divided by B4. I know it's quite hard sometimes, and sometimes we get it the wrong way around, but essentially it's this year's cost, subtract from last year's cost, comparing to last year. And there we have the difference, 117.04, and copy that down. And that is how we would tackle task 3b. And once again, you'd have to print off in value view and formula view.